Our next guest, Matt Park. Matt, we were just talking about the world's record for ping pong balls. This guy can spit ping pong balls against the wall, catch it in his mouth, and then do it again. He did it 51 consecutive times. Do you think you could do that once? I don't think I could do it once.
That's not a world record for ping pong balls. That's a world record for spitting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it's not 51 different balls. It's just one ball, Paulie. He's just volleying the ball off the wall.
It's like a lot of things in life, and America's Got Talent, stupid human tricks. How did you come to the conclusion that you're good at this? You were drunk and stoned and had a lot of time in your hands and practiced something, and let's see if I can do it again.
Is there anything, like, Steve, I'll even ask you, is there anything you do that you think you could set a world record in?
Anything I do that I could set a world record
do you have, like, a weird talent? I do not. I'm not talented at all in anything. I think so.
I mean, I could juggle, but I can't set a world record in juggling.
All right. Will you juggle on camera for us?
I could juggle on camera.
Let's do that.
I could do that during the break.
All right.
I can't set a world record, though. How about you, Matt? You have any hidden talents that we should know about? Like,
that's a good one. She's put in a lot of work. She got injured, though, right? So
yeah, she did. Yeah,
happens to the best of them.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some football. And, before we get to Colgate and beyond, let's talk about what you saw Saturday against UConn. For three quarters, it looked like they were in a whole lot of trouble. And then, they came alive at the end of the game. They get it to overtime and win it in overtime. I guess let's start with the negative. What led to that slow start in your mind against UConn, where the offense was stuck on 6 points seemingly forever?
Well, they're just probably not really clicking at a high level offensively here. I don't think there's been, they're not explosive in the run game to this point. Getting chunks on the run game, to me, it's disconcerting. You could quibble, I guess, with the play call, but when Dan Villari lines up to take a direct snap against UConn on 4th and short from a yard or two out, you probably ought to get it. I don't know that they're getting great push right now. In the past game, they didn't connect. I don't, at least from my vantage point, I didn't think Angeli was way off, or that his passes were, uncatchable or incredibly poor or any of that. I think there's just kind of a lack of, maybe a lack of touch. Maybe he can kind of lay it in there or layer it in a little, instead of throwing rockets over people's heads. He is missing high a little bit. I think those, and I'm the first person to point out he's had all these balls tipped at the line too. So there's got to be a correctable issue there. And there's just, kind of a stagnant sort of offense or approach for much of the game, and they got it to click in the right time.
And so, as far as the positives go, I thought the defense obviously played really well. There were a couple of really nice individual performances. Justice Ross Simmons at the top of the list. Antoine Delorier, big break up there at the end. What stood out to you from the positive, aspects of that game?
Look, I'm not going to. They won the game. I'm not going to list off 100 things that went super great, because they did enough to win. They're not the Packers or the '85 Bears or any of that. It's they've got work to do. It's the second game of the year. They don't have to apologize for winning close either. It's just part of the progression. I think you'll obviously see them. They have a potential to overmatch to a degree physically a Colgate team, and so things ought to look a little bit better come this game. I think they're fine right now. They still have a lot of good players that are in development and that are going to bloom over the course of the season. They're working their way through some early season nicks and things that are showing that you got to kind of, that depth's really got to be there, right? Depth at various positions on defense, defensive line, the defensive backs, running back, wide receiver. These are areas where we think Syracuse is fairly deep, at least has more people they're willing to put in the game than in recent years. And there are little nicks and bumps at those positions that are kind of testing that or getting people on the field that have got to step up and perform. And I think they've done that to a 1-1 level so far. They'll be 2-1 after this game, and a long way to go as far as the conference is concerned. And then we'll get a better idea of who they are and what's going on.
Matt, can Syracuse get anything out of this game tomorrow other than, a win, a chance to get some work in, hopefully get the reserves in, and a chance to, I guess, kind of tune up lightly for Clemson? I mean, can they get anything out of this other than, getting the reserves in there and getting some guys some experience?
Yeah, I think they can. I think the starters have got to demonstrate that they can go out there and play clean football. Let's not get a penalty that's going to appreciably change the down and distance at a disastrous time. Let's not turn it over. Let's dominate at the line of scrimmage from both sides. Those things have got to happen against Colgate for you to feel a little bit better about what's going on. I'm not down on this team at all. I think they lost in a neutral environment to a really good Tennessee team, and they, you guys talked about it leading up to the game against UConn. They kind of did play their C game and win. They led for a minute, but found a way to get it done, and so they've survived it. I think this game, let's see clean football. You can't just take for granted that it's going to be the fifth quarter and get a bunch of backups in there and people that haven't played. I think you will rotate through once people have sort of checked the boxes about doing what they're supposed to do and kind of feel good about it. And then I would get people out, if somebody goes in and has several kind of clean series and you've got the lead and now you can work some second stringers and that type of thing. That would be the goal for the fourth quarter of the game on Friday night and be fresh going to Clemson. But everybody's got to kind of do their part first.
A lot of people have been wondering how much Rickie Collins is going to play tomorrow night, and we were reminded earlier in the week that against Holy Cross last year, the starters and Kyle McCord included played into the fourth quarter. It was a little bit closer, I think, than most expected. It was a 7-point game at halftime or 14, whatever it was. Relatively close until the fourth quarter, and then the starters got removed about midway through that fourth quarter. Do you anticipate Rickie Collins playing most of the second half as long as the game is in hand, or do you think he's going to play less than that?
Most of the second half, 20 minutes, 4 series. I'd have to see it. Let ask me again at halftime. What's the score? I could see him playing a good chunk, absolutely. And I could see it coming down to not really that much at all. Maybe just 1 or 2 possessions or down the stretch. They want to I think they want to get a rhythm here. They want to feel good about who they are. The conversation this week, I think it's been abundantly clear if Fran Brown didn't say it in as many words. Steve Angeli's the starting quarterback. You go with your starting quarterback. That's why he had him in the game throughout the Connecticut game. And it's not yet a relief pitcher situation. The Dungy DeVito comparison is just not what's happening here. So I think they want to get Angeli in a groove, and they like who they have as a backup quarterback role. And whether they will say it publicly or not, I'm sure they're thinking that it would be nice to get him and maybe even others potentially in the game. So, I think a perfect world, you're blowing them out at halftime, and you play the starters maybe 1 more series, if that, and then turn it over to the backups. But Colgate will have something to say about that. They certainly haven't hurt for scoring to this point in the season, so I don't think they're going to roll over when they come in here.
No Devin Grant tomorrow. Emmanuel Ross sounds like he's out again. Yasin Willis sounds like he's out, according to Fran today on Gomez's show. Jonte Cook got nicked up. Are you concerned at all about these injuries, Matt, or is your feeling that it's all about getting ready and getting healthy for Clemson and conference play, and this is one that they can afford to sit out and get healthier, I guess, going into that Clemson game? Yeah,
the latter. I think. These are all the types of nicks that happen early in the year. The Devin Grant thing we all kind of saw in the opening game, a little bit more severe. I think these are not considered debilitating injuries for the other players that you listed there. And, in particular, Willis, Cook, that they're just kind of, the bumps and bruises that you have over the course of the year, and they're going to see, get by without him here. The Willis one was something I wasn't aware of until you guys mentioned it a bit earlier. So I think they're planning to kind of get through on the safe side with them and have them fresh for the conference opener.
Matt Park joining us here for another couple of minutes on Orange Nation. And, Matt, it feels like everybody's got a strong opinion one way or the other about the wind sprints, and we asked Fran about it yesterday. Greg Olson made some, national headlines kind of calling out Fran and saying it was performative to him. Fran responded yesterday. Everybody seems to have an opinion. What do you make of what happened after the UConn game on Saturday?
Just what happens in this day and age, unfortunately, it's just a whole lot made out of nothing. I think it's a fun talk radio topic about the pros and cons of doing something like that. The idea that Greg Olson had a strong feeling about it or that Fran clapped back is just complete nonsense. I do know Greg Olson a little bit. I texted with him this morning just because I wanted to make sure I was not inaccurately characterizing his point of view on the thing. To think that, what you read in the days after is the people who, weren't there, don't know any context, are just kind of stirring up stuff for clicks. And we're all in the business of doing that. I'm not holding it against those people. It's just they didn't come to the extra layer of stuff. Nobody's tried to ask anybody, a follow-up question about what they think. They take a snippet from a website or a podcast over here, and they run it over here and get reaction to it. What Fran Brown said yesterday was, the idea that he was disrespectful to Greg Olson or doesn't know who he is laughable. He absolutely knows who he is. He was just detaching it from, look, I'm not going to respond to somebody's comments about it who don't know what went into it. I'm going to explain that this was something we had dealt with within the team. I think probably one part that's underestimated about it is Fran had said to the guys ahead of time, this is what's going to happen. I don't think he's going to make a habit of it. Obviously, now that it's been a big to-do, I don't think it's ever something you're going to see again in Fran Brown's tenure here. But he had mentioned to the guys, look, if it doesn't look the way I want it to look, there's going to be consequences. The consequences were 3 minutes of half-assed sprints from 20 yards away. Then that gets blown into this big thing where obviously guys who are voices that are people recognize, and I think Dave Portnoy and John Gruden and Greg Olson, all in their own way, have a lot to offer, and you can pick and choose through their content and stuff. And I think there's a lot to like there. Greg Olson was asked about it. He said he thought it was a bit performative. He's totally up for his own opinion. He's allowed to have that. But the idea that he sort of lined up Fran Brown or Fran Brown lined him up going back or clapping back is laughable.
All right. Lastly, Matt, as we look ahead to this game tomorrow, and you touched on a little bit what they can get out of this. Lay out an ideal scenario, how this game goes for Syracuse start to finish tomorrow and in terms of what they're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of what we said there before. I think just play clean, overpower them, run the rock, move the chains throughout the game without a great deal of tricks or gadgets or whatever. This is an offense that is built to take what the defense gives. We talked about it last year, and it's again true this year. The ball gets spread around. Why is it spread around? Is because they've got a lot of different people that they want to feed, and they sort of let the defense dictate what's out there. The RPO game and all that, the way I'm not saying these are Jeff Nixon's words, these are my words. You put yourself in a position in this offense that you can't be wrong. If you know what you're reading, the defense goes here, we're throwing it there, and vice versa throughout the game. So I think as long as that goes smoothly, you feel pretty good about it, and you look to get the backups in. It's hard to say that leading in. Nobody wants to disrespect the opponent, much less Colgate, who's a good neighbor and all of those things. But, to answer your question about the roadmap or what they would consider a perfect game, that's what I think it is. Again, come out of it with no injuries and play your best game of the year to this point at the line of scrimmage. You certainly should. That's where you're going to have the biggest advantage against an FCS opponent. Pressure the quarterback, some things that we haven't really seen to a large degree so far.
All right, Matt. Good stuff. Have a great call tomorrow, and we'll do it again next week.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Thank you. Have fun.
All right, Voice of the Orange, Matt Parks, 7 o'clock kick tomorrow night inside the Dome between Syracuse and Colgate. We'll take our final time out. We'll wrap things up next on ESPN.